I
Because you
just,
do have a love for animals.
oh, absolutely. That has not dimmed in 40 years, which is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, because sometimes when you turn a love or a hobby into a job,
Yeah, it becomes a job.
it can become that. You can lose the passion for it. I always say this, if you can get up every day and do the things that you love,
Yeah,
you've already won at life,
right.
right? Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Brand, a podcast where we take a deep dive and look behind the scenes of the brands and the businesses that we love. We believe that behind every good business and behind every good brand is a great person, a great story, and that's what we talk about. We're coming to you, as always, from the Woodworth building where our offices are, and we are joined today by someone who I think has a great story and a great business, and I'm really excited to introduce you to her. She was actually supposed to be the very first guest, but something happened, and so we were excited to get her back on. We're recording on April Fool's Day, so I can't believe Bob and I didn't talk about that, but we should have. But that is the one and only Dr. Sandy Smith. Dr. Sandy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. When we announced at Networking Now that we were doing this, you texted right away.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
be on the podcast, and we
yeah,
were super excited.
yeah.
And like I said, I think you were the first or the second person to sign up, but you signed up for the first day and had something happen, which is very common for business owners. So I'm glad you're able to make it back and,
Thanks.
and
Yeah,
join us today.
glad to be here.
So before we get into Animal Health Clinic and
Yeah.
your business and all the things that you do and your passion, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think, I kind of fell into veterinary medicine, but I'm really well suited to it. I think I've done it for 40 years. Um, I have an absolute passion for animals, dogs, cats, whatever. Even as a small child, I was always dragging something home. I dragged a rattlesnake home once.
Really?
Yep, true story.
That's
Uh,
dangerous.
yeah, I just was always dragging something
Where was
home
this at?
in upstate New York,
Oh,
where I
wow.
spent much of my youth.
So
So
this is going to derail where we're at,
yeah,
but where at in upstate New York?
I lived in a small town called Penfield.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
Well, I lived in upstate New York for 4 years in Saratoga Springs.
Okay.
So I don't know that I've heard of Penfield, but
Well, it's a suburb of Rochester.
oh, okay. So you're
Okay.
on the east side
Yep.
of the west side
Like
of the
Lake
state.
Ontario.
Yeah. Okay.
Lake Ontario. Yeah.
Okay.
So we kept our boat on Lake Seneca in
Okay.
Geneva. Are
I
you
know.
familiar with there?
I
Yep.
am.
Yep. So a lot of good childhood memories of
Upstate New York is beautiful.
it is. Yep, it is. So, yeah, my family, we were kind of vagabonds. My father was a CPA who bought and sold businesses for
Okay.
45 years. So,
Wow.
like, I went to 11 elementary schools. We just moved all the time.
Oh, man.
Um, but we did a stint in upstate New York and it was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Good.
Yeah.
But you got to watch out for the rattlesnakes.
Well, only when you're a small child and you drag them home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And put them in an aquarium and your mother has a meltdown.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine. I'm so glad you didn't get bit.
No, I'm sure it must have been a baby.
They could-
I have to imagine it was a baby.
Well, and they say, animals can sense energy and they could just sense this lady loves me, right? She's not an enemy. She
yeah,
loves me.
no.
Because
I
you
just-
do have a love for animals.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolute passion. That has not dimmed in 40 years, which is a little bit surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes when you turn a love or a hobby into a job,
Yeah, it becomes a job.
it can become that. You can lose the passion for it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but if you can do something that you love, I always say this, if you can get up every day and do the things that you love,
Yeah.
you've already won at life,
Right.
right? So many
Right.
people hate their jobs. I read a statistic, I don't know, this was a long time ago, and I don't know how accurate it is, but they said it, that 94% of Americans say they hate their job.
Yeah.
That's astounding. And
Yeah.
so if you can do something you love, then you're winning the game.
Yep.
Tell me about family, upbringing, all of those things.
Yeah. So I have lived all over,
Yeah.
obviously. I have a brother and a sister. My sister still lives in New York in Albany.
Okay.
My
Very
family.
familiar with Albany.
Yep. She and her spouse have it's called New Hudson. It's up in the Adirondacks.
Huh.
So they have a bunch of land up in the Adirondacks. I
Yeah.
live there. My
Adirondacks
brother,
are beautiful.
yeah, it's gorgeous where they are. My brother lives in Dallas. Well, he's in Plano. You know where potato chips come from.
Yeah.
He lives in Plano. I have a nephew. Well, I have two nephews and a niece, but my oldest nephew has 5 kids, also lives there. They've all stayed in the Dallas area.
Very cool.
So,
So grew up with a love for animals,
Mhm.
passion, and at what point did you determine I want to be a vet?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. When I was in college, because of the way I had been raised, to be fair, I wasn't quite certain that I would end up having to work.
Sure.
Just it was kind of the time and the way I'd been raised. Um, but I was graduating from college and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I applied to law school, dental school, medical school, and then I did not apply to veterinary school. But something came up about it, and one of my professors kind of flippantly offhand said, "Oh, I don't think you could get into vet school." And I said, "Why not?" Not knowing, 45 years ago that women weren't really being accepted
Hmm.
into veterinary school. So I applied and I got accepted. And I said, I think I'll go to vet school. So
I'll try that.
that's how it happened. Um, and then so I didn't do it the traditional way. I wasn't in the pre vet club. I didn't go to Michigan State. I didn't work in a vet clinic. I didn't really have any experience or really any knowledge, but I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Just kind of attitude.
Understand that.
Right or wrong, but that was kind of my approach. So I ended up at Michigan State, and all of a sudden, I like hit my stride. I was just like, this is great. I get to be around all these animals all day long. And I'm from a farming background. And so I've been around animals, but they weren't pets,
Sure.
So this was just a little bit different. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And so then I was off and running, and that was that.
Okay.
Never looked back.
So when you graduated college,
Yeah.
um, did you go right into business for yourself, or did you work for a vet?
No, when I first graduated from veterinary school, as was I was used to. I'm not from Michigan, right? I didn't come to Michigan until I was in high school, and my family immediately left
Yeah.
my sister and I behind.
Left you there.
Yep. Minute my sister graduated, though she was out of Michigan, but I stayed. And so I went to North Carolina because I thought, oh, okay, I've never lived in the Carolinas. I'll just go down in the Carolinas. And for the first 2 years out of school, I did equine medicine.
Okay.
And I just decided it was always in the middle of the night. It was always in the middle of a field. I just
Yeah.
didn't really want to do that. So I came back to Michigan. And I didn't buy my own practice until what had I been out of school? 8 years, I think.
Okay. Still
And
very young for a lot of people.
yeah. And I bought my practice from a gentleman who had started the practice I worked at when I moved back to Michigan. He had retired, didn't like retirement, opened up a small little practice in Fenton, and then he unfortunately had a heart attack and died.
Oh no.
And his widow approached me, and so I bought his practice, and that was so it would have been 10 years because that was in 1996.
So how old were you at this time?
I would have been 36.
So 36 with your own practice. That's still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
I was 35 when I started AZEE. So
Yeah.
you're still learning a lot of stuff at that time.
I'm still learning.
Still learning how to run a business. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you got off to start. Was it called Animal Health Clinic right from the beginning?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. And back then, and this is interesting, and this just ages me, but Dr. Weber, the person who started it, said, I asked him why the name, like, where'd you come up with that? And he said, it's the first one in the phone book.
I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. We were talking about marketing and social media. And I said, there was a time where the strategy was, you see a lot of businesses today called AAA.
Yeah,
AAA
right.
something,
Yeah.
and it's like, that was a strategy
Yeah.
to get at the front of
Yes.
the. So
Of course.
yeah, that's what it's not really a strategy anymore. But you
Nope.
still have these businesses that are all like
A's and
A-
B's. Yeah.
The A section of the phone book was definitely the longest.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So okay, so Animal Health. So that was the name that you inherited.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you
And I
didn't have
just
to,
kept it. Right. I just kept it.
and it was an established business and a brand, so that's a
Yep.
smart strategy. So 1996.
Yep.
You get going, you're on
Yep.
your own. Tell me about those early days and what were some of the things you learned from going to loving animals and being around and helping them to now, like, I got to run a business.
Yeah. Well, it's just every day is different. I don't think you can ever predict or be prepared.
It's one of the things you love about it and hate about it, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I love it.
I'm not a routine guy, so I love the everyday's different, but
Well-
sometimes it's a huge stressor.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's a stress. I mean, my job is different every single day. I don't necessarily want the business aspect of it to be different.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
I like to pay my bills on time. I don't like surprises like that.
Yeah.
I find staffing very, very hard. And it's in my 30 years of owning a business, it's gotten significantly harder and significantly worse.
It's a challenge a lot of our clients have.
Yeah. And so many things have changed, not just medically, because technologically medicine has changed so much, but I predate the internet and I predate email and I predate so many of the things that we are forced to do like electronic medical records and electronic prescriptions. That was not even dreamed of when I started. So
Right.
some of those changes are a little more challenging for me than say my associates who are 30 years younger
Grow
than
up in
me.
it. Yeah.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
my kids, they're just technology is intuitive to them.
Yeah. Oh,
They
of
just
course.
understand it.
Well, and they were like, this is a true story. When cell phones first came out, I didn't know how to text.
Yeah.
Like I had a flip phone. I was real happy. Then I
Yeah.
crushed it in my car seat.
I
And
can call people where I'm
I
driving.
can
This is
drive and
amazing. Yeah.
right, yeah. And I needed to make a text, and I had no idea how to do it. So I literally looked around the room and I handed my phone to the youngest person in the room, and I said, "Can you please respond to this?" And they like, "Oh, Dr. Sandy,"
Yeah. And with
like
the flip phone, it was tough because you had to hit the
yeah,
button so
yeah.
many times. And
Well, yeah. And I had a nephew that lived with me for a while, and he would literally be like half asleep, and he'd be like this. And I
yeah.
had no idea how he ever did it, but he was very, very good at it. But yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of the technology has been a super challenge for me.
Yeah.
I'm adjusting. I do see the value in a lot of it, but I've still fought it a lot
Sure.
along the way because it's not second nature to me.
Well, there are some people, that are early adopters of technology
Yeah.
and they just see it and understand it and see the benefits and jump on it. And then there are others, and I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I
Like,
think I would be too.
my senior year in high school, I remember them bringing computers in
Yeah.
and doing some sort of a computer class. But
Yeah.
so I didn't grow up with it. And then my family didn't have a computer in the house till I had moved out. So I think I remember seeing them have a computer when I was in my 20s. And so a lot of these new things that come out, like my son who's behind the camera, he just gets it. And it's funny because there was a time where I had to teach him how to turn on the iPad and how,
Yeah.
but now if I ask a question about technology, he's so bothered and annoyed that I don't get it.
Right.
But, so I try to stay on top of it. In our company, you have to kind
You
of
have to, yeah.
stay on the cutting edge of technology. And now AI is kind of taking over the world. And I would never say that I'm probably intimidated of it, but you get to a certain age where you don't want to learn new things.
Yeah.
You want to just do the things you're already good at,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but it's important to surround yourself with young people that can learn the things for you.
Well, I think also too, not all of the old things are bad.
No.
Every now and then you come across something that really worked.
Yep.
And my younger staff will stare at me and roll their eyes and stomp their feet, and I'm like, just try it.
Yeah.
Like, give it a try.
Yeah.
You don't know, it might not be great. And occasionally I'll whip out some old form of medicine or medication, or this hasn't worked and this hasn't worked and this hasn't worked, and I'll say, have you tried? And they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Just give it a try.
Yeah.
Like, so it goes both ways.
Some of
I
the old school
understand
ways are good
yeah,
and they're better.
yeah,
So tell us, let's talk a little bit more about Animal Health
Yeah.
Clinic. Obviously, we know it's a veterinary
Yep.
clinic.
Yep.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your services,
Yep.
what type of,
Yep.
medical services you provide, and what type of animals you work with.
yeah. Well, so our primary patients are dogs and cats, and cats.
Is that intentional, or is that
No.
just,
Well,
that's what
we're
most
what's-
people have?
Well, we're what's called a small animal or a companion animal hospital. So mostly that comprises dogs and cats.
Yeah.
People do have the occasional pot-bellied pig. They'll have the occasional goat or duck or ferret or rabbit or whatever.
Rattlesnake.
Yeah, I've seen some sugar gliders. I've seen hedgehogs. But both of my associates are quite a bit younger than I am, like over 30 years younger than I am. And they want to see dogs and cats, and that's it.
Yeah.
I kind of came up at a time when you saw whatever someone brought through the door.
Yeah.
I literally saw, this is a true story, somebody walked a horse through my doors that a fire truck had hit.
Oh no.
I actually
A full-grown horse.
full-grown horse.
Oh.
I actually had a client. She wasn't a client at the time, but she came flying through the doors and she said, "These dogs attacks my goats." And I'm like, "Lady, I don't treat goats." And she
Yeah.
said, literally, she was a really good client for a lot of years. She said, "You do now."
Figure it out.
And I treated her goat and it lived. And then I always participated in this thing called radiology rounds, where a bunch of veterinarians would get together, look at x-rays, learn from each other, say, "Oh, I would have never seen that," or, "Oh, let me show you this," or whatever. So you do radiology rounds. And I took the goat x-rays to radiology rounds, and this goat had a thing called a flail chest, which is where the ribs are broken and the chest kind of flops. And you can't make the vacuum that's required to breathe when that happens. So I'm telling them about this goat, and I'm telling them what I did, and I'm saying I had no idea what kind of drugs to use or what kind of dose to use, so I just sort of made it up. And they all looked at me and they said, "The goat died, right?" And I said, "No, the goat's great." And they said, "Goats always die." I said, well, I'm glad I was dumb and I didn't know
Yeah.
because I just treated the goat and off it
And it
went
worked.
and the goat did great. So sometimes it is good to just be stupid, but we mostly just treat dogs and cats. I will treat exotics under the understanding I am not certified in lab animal medicine, but I'll give anything a go. I will
Yeah.
give it a try if the owner understands,
Yeah.
right? Um, so mostly dogs and cats.
Okay. Well, we've talked a little bit about my dog, Willow. I have
Yeah,
a little Shih Tzu.
yeah,
I was going to bring her to you. And, all the research I had done just because she has all kinds of allergies.
yeah.
And
So I'm guessing she's atopic.
I don't, maybe everything said diet, diet, diet. So I actually tried the farmer's dog,
Yeah.
which is very expensive,
Yes.
but it's changed everything. I mean, she doesn't have the red skin anymore. Her
Yes.
hair looks healthier.
Yes.
Um,
I do have a question though. Is that
yes,
grain free?
I don't know.
Okay.
They ask you when you go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
They ask you a ton of questions
Mm-hmm.
about the dog and what her habits are, how old she is, the breed, everything, thoroughbred. And then they say, we're going to have someone recommend, they say a physician,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, and so they recommended a special blend for her and for her allergies.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. It's been about 3 or 4 months. Well, it's been about 5 months now. And,
So do two things for me.
yes,
Here's some unsolicited advice.
please, please. We
Um,
love her.
yeah. Okay. So there's this thing called AAFCO, the American Association of Food Control Officials. There's no truth in labeling. There's no FDA for veterinary
Okay.
foods, right? So
It's
they
not
can
regulated.
not regulated. They can put anything on the label they want. It could contain eggshells, and they could tell you it's diamonds. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. There's no governing body. If a company tests and passes AAFCO requirements, you at least know the label is accurate and it's solid and meets at least minimum. It may not be premium, it might not be the best, but it's minimum, right?
Okay.
It will more than likely keep your dog healthy,
Okay.
right? So AAFCO, super important. And the other thing is, there has been in the last 10 to 15 years this push to go grain free, and it has become a actually very effective marketing gimmick. Dogs are omnivores. The basis of their diet is grain. Without grain, dogs develop a condition called dilatative cardiomyopathy, which causes congestive heart failure, which kills your dog.
Wow.
So, about 10 years ago, I'm not going to say the brand, but a brand of dog food was started by a non-veterinarian nutritionist, right? And they made these very pricey grain-free diets. Fast forward a few years, and guess what?
Yeah.
Dogs are dying right, left, and center from dilatative cardiomyopathy in numbers that nobody had ever seen before. Okay, so why? So you go back, you do the epidemiological and the retrospective studies. Bingo, it's the diet.
No grain.
So I purchased, but I don't think it's Farmer's Dog. So I have an old fat rescue that has the medical issues this dog has are just ridiculous, which is why I ended up with him. Nobody would adopt him. But anyway, even though he's fat, it turns out he's picky, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's Farmer's Dog though. But I buy these little, I think it's Fresh Pet. I buy these little kibbly things. It's not kibble, it's fresh food that I use as a topper. But I make sure that he gets a good professional.
That's interesting. Well, they said at the beginning to mix her kibble with it, which we did. So she gets used to it. She loves it now.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it has grain. I'll do that research.
It should be on the label. So
Yeah.
like the little tidbits I'm feeding, they say right on it grain free. I would never use it as a diet.
Yeah.
Grain free is fine as a treat. It's
Sure.
fine as an addition.
But it can't be all they
have
eat.
to have
Interesting.
those. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've seen better behavior and better, she seems to just not be so.
Well,
But I think that's a good thing to look into. I would have never known.
yeah. Well, I think if you look at it, if you feed your kid ho-hos or you feed your kid a nice balanced diet, your child probably wants the ho-ho.
For sure.
But they're going to do better on
Yeah.
a complete and balanced. Now, it's okay to have a ho-ho, but you need.
No, listen, that's great advice. It makes perfect sense. I'm going to look into that as soon as we're done today. They market it to be like all natural from the farm and it's real food.
But there's no proof of that unless they're AAFCO certified.
And it's so expensive. So if I'm doing this and it's not, it's funny when we got the dog, we had trouble with pets growing up. We had 6 kids. So like, you have 8 dependent. I have 7 dependents in the house. Why do I want to bring another dependent? Another thing I have to pay for and care for. So I was always hesitant. We got 2 different cats. They both got hit by a car.
Oh gosh.
You have to tell the kids and it's devastating. And then We had a dog that ran away. We had even a beta fish. They're supposed to never die. It died. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, we're just not pet people. We don't
Yeah.
know how to care for these things.
Yeah.
I loved pets growing up. I had a dog all through middle school and high school, a golden lab
Mhm.
named Cujo, but we just called him Joe. And my best friend slept at my feet every night. Loved that dog. I went to college down in Florida. My mother ran a daycare in our home, and they got a kid that was allergic to pets. So my mom got rid of my dog without telling me.
Oh my
While I was in
God.
Florida, I come home I was more excited to see the dog than anyone, and he was
Oh,
gone. They
oh.
dropped him off on a farm, and he was being well taken care of, but like he was gone. And so that was like, I'm never having a dog again. You know, it was my first love.
Heartbreaking, yeah.
So I never wanted pets. And then, you know, we tried a few for the kids, you know, the little girls ask, and I just cave. Um, well, my sister has a full bred Shih Tzu male,
Mhm.
and my wife said we should get these puppies, and
Yeah.
they were expensive. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, my growing up when we got pets, so you go to the pound, you
Sure.
get a free pet, you know,
Sure.
and you know, $1,000 for a pet. I'm like, my goodness. But my wife convinced me that we could breed this dog with my sisters twice a year. And that, you know, this is how much the puppies go for. So I see a business
Yeah.
opportunity. So the
Yeah.
only reason I gave in was because I saw the money. So I was calling her Cash when we first got her. Her name's Willow, but I was calling her Cash. But then I just fell in love with
Yeah.
this stupid little dog, you
Yeah.
know. She's just a yapper, ankle biter, but I just love her. And then we did breed her one time, and she almost died.
Yeah.
She had four. She's tiny. She had
Yeah.
4 pups. One of them did die, and then she almost. We were down in Florida. We had to come home. We had to take her to an emergency situation. It was bad.
Yeah.
So I said, no more breeding this dog. Like this is now I love her, you know, like she's my child.
Yeah.
And so the thought that I would be spending what I'm spending for the food for this,
Yeah.
nobody would have ever
Yeah.
expected it.
Yeah.
But you just fall in love with them, you know,
For
they become
sure.
part of the family.
Well, I think that we neglect many of us neglect to really view them as sentient creatures, but they are full of personality. They're all different.
Yeah,
They're exceedingly intelligent, which we don't give them credit
for
for.
sure.
And my father always used to say, they don't read and they don't speak, therefore we don't think they're very intelligent. But look at how they have success. We put them in really abnormal situations. Dogs lives in pack. We put them in a house with humans. They don't understand how humans work. We take away fight or flight because we close them in and we leash
Yeah.
them. And they're still, for the most part, very successful. They're
Pleasant, yeah.
super intelligent. And
Yeah.
cats are very smart, but also cats are vindictive.
Yes,
But-
they are. Yes, so we have a cat and a dog. So
Yeah.
Maple is the cat, Willow's the dog. And Maple is loving, but she makes you work for it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
she makes you work for it, and nothing is easy. But
Yep.
so yeah, now I love these pets, and the kids are growing up, and I'm like, it's just gonna be us and the pets soon here, hon.
Yeah.
So
Well, I brought home this was probably, you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to tell you it anyway.
Please.
The thing I'm probably the most proud of in my veterinary career was a mistake. And it was a 4-month-old Chesapeake Bay Retriever that was brought to me to be euthanized because he was peeing in the house. Well, it turns out the puppy had diabetes, which is unheard of. Juvenile diabetes. In fact, in veterinary school, they teach you it doesn't happen, but it does. I had one. This dog came in 4 months old, and he had a condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, which is end stage, I'm dying, right?
Yeah.
They die quickly with DKA. So the owner wanted him euthanized, and I'm looking at this 30-pound puppy, and I'm saying, I'm not euthanizing this dog.
Yeah.
So I have a habit, as I'd already told you, of taking things home, and my bathroom is considered a neonatal intensive care unit. So I have this habit of taking things home. So I take the dog home, and Brian, my spouse, wasn't at the time a dog person, even though I'd always have 6 or 8 or 10 cats in the house. And I have a horse that I rescued, but I had not brought home a dog up to this point. And I bring this dog home who is just incredibly ill, and Brian is laying on the couch, and I like plop the puppy on him. And he says, in part of my language, but he says, "We're not having a GD dog." And now we're like 30 years in, and I look at him and I said, "It's not negotiable." And I
This
left.
wasn't a question.
Yeah, I wasn't giving you a choice. And I left. And I just left the puppy with him. And by the time I came home, they were so bonded. Those two became litter mates. They were inseparable. And this was the man who didn't want the
Yeah.
dog. Right?
Yeah. You do fall in
So-
love with them.
They do. So, but anyway, just my side note with Buddy, that dog, I don't know that I've ever loved anything the way I loved Buddy. He was obnoxious. He was challenging. He was intelligent beyond virtually any dog I've ever met. but he had this really intense disease process, diabetes, which isn't easy to manage. And I managed him for 13 years. He lived to be 13. He's the longest surviving diabetic in American Veterinary Medical Association
Wow.
documented history,
Wow.
because as a veterinarian, of course, I
Yeah,
documented it.
of course.
So, but yeah, that same thing. Brian was like, I don't want a dog. And I'm like, yeah, we are.
Yeah,
We
we
already
are.
have a dog,
And then
dude.
he loved the dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. I totally get it. And you know, I love Willow, and she's great with people. She's not great around other dogs. She got bit when she was a puppy
Yeah.
by a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Punctured her skin to she was
Yeah.
bleeding, and
Yeah.
she was little. So ever since then, she's very skittish around dogs she doesn't know. But so and I was just going to ask you, what was a business decision you made that you were proud of? So you kind of
Well, that
answered
wasn't
that.
that was more of a medical decision.
Yeah.
Business decision. Probably um, when I bought my building. I think that was probably one of the better things we did for the business. I bought a building. Um, we were in a strip mall when Dr. Weber, who I bought my practice from,
Hmm.
was in a strip mall. So I stayed in that strip mall for about 10 years, 8 years, I think. Um, and I bought an old building in Fenton, which that in and of itself is such a cool place.
Yeah.
It was built in 1934 and it was a gas station. It was a bomb factory during World War II.
Wow.
It was a Gold's Gym. It was a Radio Shack. It was an it had lots of lives. But I will have, I don't know how you feel about this, but I have clients that come in and they say, you have ghosts. And I'm like, good or bad? Are they good ghosts or
Yeah.
bad ghosts?
Yeah.
Which I think is actually kind of cool.
It's
Maybe you
cool.
think there are weird things about this old
Yeah, we
building,
have
but
an old building here, and people say the same thing. And
yeah,
there's definitely strange noises and things that
yeah.
happen. And
Well,
yeah,
I'm not perceptive enough. Like I would love to, but I mean, I have clients that I really think do have a sense I don't have, or they at least
like a sixth sense.
can
Yeah.
perceive that sense. But they'll come in and say, "Oh yeah, you have ghosts." One came in and she smudged the building, and I'm like, "Okay."
Today's episode is brought to you by AZEE Branding Agency, where we help grow your brand from A to Z. If your business is great but nobody knows it, you don't have a marketing problem, you've got a branding problem. At AZEE, we help you stand out with bold branding by creating websites, social media, video, and photography that actually gets noticed. Because attention is the #1 currency in business, and your brand deserves more of it. Learn more at azeebranding.com, and let's get your brand the attention it deserves.
Well, what would you say, going back to the business itself,
Yeah.
being a business owner for
Yeah.
40 years,
Yeah.
that's impressive all by itself. Statistically, most businesses fail. I tell people that tell me they're going to start a business, I say, well, statistically, it's nearly impossible to make money running your own business. And I tell people that because to me, if I can talk you out of it, you're never going to make it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So
Yeah.
I almost try to talk people out of it, kind of testing their resolve, because it's going to be tough. You
Mhm.
got to stick with it. There's going to be times you want to quit. And so it's kind of a little tactic that I do. And the ones that are like, yeah, I'm not scared of that, you have a better chance.
Yeah.
Still doesn't mean you're going to make it, but
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
a
yeah.
better shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's some valuable lessons that you've learned over the last 40 years that you think would be really helpful to someone that's in it or thinking about
Yeah.
getting into it, not just veterinarian specifically, but just getting into business for
Yeah.
themselves?
Well, I don't know if this applies just to business, but I had a very feisty Irish mother, and one of her favorite phrases was, "Everything's impossible until it isn't."
Yeah.
And I think that's important, because I think if you have a passion, for me, it can't be just about the money, because I think if it's just about the money, you're much more likely to fail.
100%.
But I
Or
think
quit.
I think if you have a passion for what you're doing, the money becomes secondary, but also probably you end up with more of it because you're passionate. And people see that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think my clients have any way to judge how good or bad a veterinarian I am, but they can tell if their dog likes me. They can tell if I like their dog. They can tell if I'm kind to the dog, if I take my time. Um, so I think also, I think it helps to be stupid. I think it helps to have no idea what you're up against.
Yeah.
Because then
But then you got to figure it out.
you're less likely to cave, I think,
Yeah.
because you don't realize this is going to happen again. It's
So
going to be a different
naive.
scenario. Naive.
Naive.
It's going to
yeah.
be a different scenario day after day after day. But if you don't really realize you're in for that, you're like, whatever, we'll just get through today. So
You got to be a little bit of an eternal optimist, right? You got to be like, this is going to work out, and a believer. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely great advice. If you can do what you love every
Mhm.
day, you're winning the game. I
Sure.
mean, regardless how much money you make. I mean,
Right.
I told the last episode, maybe I just said it to you, that 94% of Americans hate their job.
Yeah, you said that.
And
yeah.
I just determined, like, I had jobs that I hated.
Yeah.
And even though I was good at them and I
Yeah.
made good money,
Yeah.
wasn't happy. And so I'm not going to be unhappy every day. And so, doing what I do now, I might be busier than ever. I might work more hours. I can do it in my own time. But I love it, and
Yeah,
that
that's
helps.
great.
And your clients do pick up on it.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I am
yeah.
like a branding nerd. I love talking about a business. This is why I love the podcast. I like learning about people's process. And I think that shows through. And I know in my times being around you, whether it's been at your clinic shooting a video or meeting you through networking now and hearing you talk, your passion for animals is so evident, and just in the way you talk and discuss. And I don't know that I've, firsthand even witnessed it in the clinic, but hearing you talk about it, it's something you can't fake. And so I think passion is so important.
Yeah, and look what I just did. I gave you unsolicited advice about your dog
Yeah.
food.
Yes. I'll get a bill later, right?
Yeah.
So obviously one of our main focal points here is branding.
Yep.
Some people say I don't have a business, I have a brand. And I would say if you have a business, you have a brand,
Yeah.
whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
And so to us, the brand is not the logo. It's the visual representation of the logo, but it's not the logo. And there's a lot of things I think that make a great brand. But from your perspective, what do you think the things that make a great brand?
That's a really good question, since I don't ever think about that kind of a thing, right? Because I spay dogs.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say, and for my practice, I just think it's how we treat our clients and our patients. It's a lot easier, in my opinion, to be really good to my patient versus my clients.
Sure.
Patients don't talk back. Patients don't argue about paying. Clients do. But to go backwards a little bit, my first 8 years out of school, I worked for other people. I did not like it. I didn't like being told how I had to practice medicine. I didn't like being told you can't do X, Y, and Z. Again, this was pre-cell phone. But now my clients have my cell phone. They call me at all hours. I don't know if you've ever called me after hours, but if you did, I would have answered the phone.
Yeah.
I always do. My associates, not so much, but me, I do. I respond to Facebook. I respond to like Messenger, email. Any way they get a hold of me, I will
So many
respond.
ways to get a hold of you now.
Yeah, and I always respond. And I think things like that give people, I think that becomes your brand.
100%.
Like we are known in Fenton for that. I always respond. I might say you need to go to the ER. It's not something I can do for you, but many times I can talk people off the ledge. It'll be fine. That dog can wait until the morning. It's okay. It's not that bad, whatever. And I think just how you conduct business day in and day out, I think kind of creates your brand. We don't do high volume, which in this day and age is really the push. You need to make X amount of dollars per hour. You need to make X amount of dollars per patient. That was never that important to me.
Yeah.
Probably should have been.
Of course.
But I didn't set my practice up that way. And that is our reputation in the community. So to me, that's kind of our brand. So I think it's how you do things. I think your brand is kind of how you do things.
It's a great answer. I think a great way to describe a brand is this. When someone thinks of Dr. Sandy Smith as the person, or just thinks of Sandy Smith, I should say, the first thing that's going to come to their mind is your face. I know who she is. I know.
Yeah.
That's the visual.
Right.
That's how people recognize you.
Right.
When someone sees you in the store or at downtown, that's Dr. Sandy, or that's Sandy Smith.
Yeah.
Right? Now, whether or not that person decides to come up and talk to you, or like they see you in the store and they're like, instead of running over to you, they run that way,
Yes.
or they avoid you.
Yes.
That's your brand.
Yeah.
So for your business, the logo is what people think of, and the colors, the fonts. That's kind of what people think of when they hear your name.
Yeah.
But then the brand is whether they decide, I want to go there and do business. I want to support them.
Yeah.
If I have a sick animal, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Because they're kind, or because it's the thing that builds trust and loyalty and referrals and all of those things.
Yeah.
And so, you've heard me say this at networking. If people don't know you, you have a marketing problem. But if people don't choose you,
you have a branding problem.
So people know you exist, but they're not going to you. They either have someone else that they like, or they just don't trust your brand. They don't know your brand. They don't understand it. And so we focus a lot here on building the brand. How do you build a business that people love and that people trust and that people want to talk about, people want to see it succeed? And that's when I think you're really onto something. We also say that the number one currency in any business or organization is attention. And we're all doing something to get attention, right? We have this great product, this great service, but nobody knows about it. Then how do you sell, right? So I know you go to networking, you're here doing a podcast, all to shine a little bit of attention on Animal Health Clinic and what you do and what you love. What are some of the things that you guys have done or do successfully to get attention for your business?
Um, well, pre-COVID, it's really quite a bit different since COVID, but pre-COVID, we were super active in our community. Every year we did Santa Paws. Fenton has what they call Jingle Fest. And so we would have a Santa come and we would take pictures with dogs and cats. And it was a donation.
Yeah.
And then we would donate that money. We would let the people pick, like, here are our three charities. So, Leader Dog for the Blind, Genesee County Animal, whatever we would pick. And then we would let the public decide where they wanted their money to go. So we always did things like that. The 4th of July in Fenton, we used to do ladies' night, where Fenton always has ladies' nights, right? So you'd buy a few bottles of wine, you can come in, you can have a glass of wine, you can see our business, and we'd have Mary Kay and we'd have Pampered Chef and a massage person and those kinds of things. We would do that. I personally, and on my own, and I don't know that I do this necessarily to get a ton of credit for it, but I used to go to Genesee County Animal Control and I would take dogs out and run them. I've been a marathon runner most of my life. I had a spinal injury in 2020. I can't run anymore, but I used to just go, and that was my way of giving back, is I would get these dogs out of a cage and I'd burn off some energy for them and we would go run. And I would end up meeting a lot of people, just not intentionally, but here you are, you're doing things that people like and you have a passion for as
Building
well, and
trust.
they see you.
Yeah.
So I never really made a big deal out of that, but I would see people and they're like, oh, you're the one running down the road with that pit bull,
Yeah.
And you'd be like, yeah, that was me. I go once a week. But yeah, we just try to be out in the community as much as possible. And I think it probably sounds lame, but we just do the best we can to take care of our clients, the absolute best we can. We recognize weddings, births, sadly divorces, deaths in the family. We just really try to make our clients feel like they're part of the practice.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's great. So we're coming down to the end here, and I want to get a little more from you in terms of your business mind. I think your passion for animals and what you do is very clear. It comes out in your speech. It comes out in the way your face lights up when you talk about a dog that you rescued or running the dogs. I mean, you can tell that's not something you can that's not a business strategy.
Yeah. Right.
Right. I mean, it can be, but that's not why you do it. So if you were to start all over today, knowing everything you know now,
yes,
what would you do differently?
I don't know. That's a really tough one. Since COVID, my industry, prior to COVID, I probably would have said not a whole lot, maybe be a little more business wise astute, but I don't know that I would have changed a lot pre-COVID. Since COVID, veterinary medicine has undergone a huge transition, and one I don't like, one I'm not on board with. I'm not happy. We're really becoming corporatized. And in my opinion, that is drastically reducing the level of veterinary care, because a CPA in Omaha doesn't give a hoot what's happening to a Shih Tzu in Owasso.
Yeah.
All they want is, we need this amount of money per transaction. It has created tremendous staffing shortages. We can't find veterinarians. In the United States last year, there were 4,700 more open jobs than there were new graduates.
Wow.
So when you talk about people leaving the industry, you talk about people retiring, whatever, and we're already 4,700 short.
It's crazy to me, because it seems like the love for animals is higher than ever. But
it is. The problem is, if you really get into the nuts and bolts of veterinary medicine, it's medicine. People think it's playing with puppies and kittens, but it's dealing with dying animals.
Yeah.
It's dealing with grieving owners when they lose. Now, your pet went to live on a farm, but let's say he had died.
Yeah.
There's way more to it than just, I get to play with puppies and kittens, what the public thinks, right? So day in and day out, we deal with the financial, emotional conflict. there's very little insurance in veterinary medicine, pluses and minuses to that,
That
right?
is true.
A
Yeah.
lot of goods to that because I can do what I want, not what an insurance company says I can or approves.
Right.
So goods and bads. But we have a
People can't afford
financial,
it.
yeah. And so perfectly healthy animals come in and people say euthanize them, or I don't like this puppy, it chews on my rug, or like the one I took, he's urinating in my house and I don't have time for it. Put him down. Now, I
Yeah.
don't even understand that mindset, but
Right.
we deal with it day in and day out. So that has really changed since COVID. Pre COVID, we didn't have all this surplus pets that we now have that people got. Corporations came. It was all kind of happening all at the same time. So, kind of like the perfect storm. So, now I don't know that I would want to start a veterinary hospital. It's a pretty tough environment. But again, when you're young, you're dumb. And that's great because you're willing to, put yourself out there. So I don't know. I don't know that I would have changed a lot other than I think I might have invested a little bit more in business education so I
Sure.
knew what I was doing.
Sure.
That's retrospectively because at the time I thought, I can do this.
Well, I'll tell you, to me, having done this for 11 years, and I worked in the corporate world for 10 years before that, and then I was a pastor for 7 years. So I've had some different experiences. And I've read all the business books, and I've taken online classes, and I've hired students that have a 4-year degree in business.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me just tell you, my opinion is you say you would invested more in learning, and there's certainly things to learn, but nothing teaches you like just doing it.
Experience. Yeah.
I mean, every
Yeah.
book has like, this is the way. And every business is so different that there
Yes.
is no way. There's no box. There's no,
Right.
if you could have a formula for success, then everyone would be successful, right? So there's a lot of best practices.
Sure.
There's a lot of good ideas. You could draw inspiration, but the problem is so many young people go to school and they take, this is the way,
Yes.
or they read a book, this is the way, and it is a way, and it is, there's some effectiveness to it, but you just have to get up every day and be willing to learn, be willing
Right.
to be dumb, be willing to take risks, make decisions. And we talked about this in our staff meeting on Monday because we're all reading a book together called Creativity Inc. And the whole chapter was about um, being willing to fail.
Yeah, of course.
Some people protect themselves from failure, and you can't. If you're going to run a
No,
business,
that's right.
you got to be willing
Right.
to have a bad decision, to make the wrong call, and just live with it, and then learn from it and move on. And so, I think what you're saying is, yeah, I think we all wish we had more business knowledge. I think every entrepreneur probably wishes that, but the truth is, you probably have more business knowledge in your 40 years
Oh,
than
yeah, for sure.
some, CEO that's been at it for a couple years and has a college degree, and they know things, what they read, but they haven't experienced it
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
And it's just true. There's head knowledge and then there's life knowledge. And
Yeah.
so, I'm certain there's a lot of business owners could learn from you. And I think as a business owner, you always have to be willing to continue to learn, just like they call medicine practicing,
Yes,
because
that's
you're
exactly right.
always
Well, it's
evolving and
ever
learning.
evolving, right?
It's the same thing with business. It
Yeah.
changes, new things come across, AI is coming, and social media and websites and technology, and you have to adapt and learn.
Freaking texting.
Yes, texting, right. And so, yeah, that's really good.
Best book I ever read was a book. Well, in regard to my practice. Best book I ever read was a book called "If Disney Ran Your Practice."
Oh, that's funny. The book we're reading, Creativity Inc., is by the guy who founded Pixar.
Is that right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's all their process about how they, the starts about how they
Yeah.
made Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear, and the process that went into it, and the failures that went into it, and the wrong decisions that went into it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's a little bit, that book's a little bit like that too, but it's all about making people feel welcome and happy, and it's a positive experience when they walk in. So, like, actually, you asked me some of the things I thought, and this is just making me think of it. You asked me some of the things that I thought we had done right in my business. A few of the things were feline friendly. So there's a group, it used to be called the American Association of Feline Practitioners. They just changed their name to the Feline Veterinary Medical Association. There are certain ways to handle cats and certain ways to not handle cats, right? Because cats are terrified by everything. So we're feline friendly certified. So we have extended training and certain equipment and rooms and ways to reduce cat stress and anxiety. We're also fear free. So there's a gentleman by the name of Marty Becker who started the Fear Free Academy. And it talks about, I have like Dollar General thinks I'm an absolute whack job because I'll go in and buy $100 worth of squeeze cheese, cheese in a can,
Yeah.
right? because I put cheese everywhere. I put it on the wall, I put it on the floor, I put it on the table. Owners are mortified and their dogs are happier than all get out, because what really motivates most dogs? It's food.
Yeah.
But we have peanut butter. I always have pounds of bacon frozen in the freezer. Some dogs don't like cheese. Some dogs have food allergies.
Yeah.
We work really hard at making every experience positive. Many animals have had bad experiences, so you can't really make everyone positive, but you can notch it down. You
Yeah.
can make it less negative.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we do. That's why we schedule hour-long appointments as opposed to 15-minute appointments. If I have to sit on the floor and give this dog 6 pieces of bacon before he'll come talk to me, I will do it. That doesn't fall into the corporate mentality,
No, you wouldn't
right?
read that in a book.
No, but we do it all day long. I do it all day long.
Yeah, the book would say get him in and out as
And
quickly
get it
as
out.
possible,
And you have to
money.
make X amount of dollars per hour, but I've never fallen into that. I can't say money's not important to me. That's a lie, but it wasn't important enough to me.
Not the most important
Yeah.
thing.
So I do think those are really, and I think we are very different from most veterinary practices. I will go and sit in the parking lot. If the dog is too afraid to come in, if I force it, I've escalated its fear. And if I let the dog make some choices, I've minimized it. Well, I've at least not escalated.
Sure.
But I'll take my bag of bacon. People think I'm a nut job, but I have sat on my grass more times than I care to tell you. I've treated more dogs in back of cars. Not safe. It's not AVMA recommended. But what is the point of traumatizing them?
Yeah.
I don't do them any favors. And honestly, I'm probably not doing my job if I'm terrorizing a dog either. So I'm sorry to kind of go backwards, but
No, that's great.
that is something that I think that we have done a very good job, because I've always felt that the animals' emotions matter, and most places don't. And this goes back a long way, because I was back in vet school in the very early 80s. And they literally taught us this thing called Brudicane. Brudicane. Think about that. You were to hold an animal down and get done what you needed to get done, completely disregarding any emotional trauma to the animal. It's horrible. It's really inhumane. I don't think vet schools teach that anymore, but I literally was taught that 45 years ago. And even then I was like, this is wrong.
Well, and so then going back to what we talked about, had you had more business training,
yeah.
or, business acumen, whatever, you might not have done those things. You might not be
Right.
willing to sit down on the floor,
Right.
because everything you learned was like, oh, you got to get. And so, I'm not discrediting the value of education. A lot of people have asked me my opinions about college. I think in
Yeah.
many cases, college is a scam.
Yeah. I think it's a halfway house.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're going into something very specific, like
Mhm.
veterinary
Mhm.
care or the medical field or, law enforcement, there are certainly degrees you have to achieve. So in that case, yes. But so many kids go for just a general
Yes.
business degree or marketing degree or, women's studies or,
Arts and crafts.
PE. Yeah. It's like, it's just a bit, and listen, there is value to the experience.
Yeah.
As an employer, when I have someone that has a 4-year degree, it tells me they're able to stick with something
Yes.
that was hard and that
Yes.
they pushed through it. That's value. But I know they're going to learn more in the first month working for me than they
Yeah, I
learn in
agree.
4 years of college.
I totally agree.
I've had college graduates tell me I've learned more in the first 2 months here than because it's not real world, and it's very it's very monetized.
Mm-hmm.
Why does someone who's trying to learn marketing need to have 4 math classes? Like,
Right.
and not to say
Right.
that not math's valuable, but like all these required credits, it should never take 4 years to learn. My son's going to a trade school, and he's 1 year, and it's $18,000, and he's going to be able to make $80,000
Out of the right.
and it took 1 year.
Yeah,
And it's not even a full year.
I just saw a statistic yesterday that was talking about electricians, and it was the same idea. You go to this, I think this was a 2-year program, but anyway, these students are coming out of this and they're making $260,000.
Yeah.
It's somewhat geographical, but still.
Well, so he goes 1 year, 2 semesters, so it's not even a full year, not a calendar year. And then he could either go back and get more education and pay, or he can go work for someone for 2 years and get all the certifications, so get paid while he's learning
Doing it, yes.
real world experience. And he's going to have so many options by the time he's 21, 22 years old,
Yes.
and he's found something that he loves. And so, I have such mixed emotions about college. And I don't want to minimize the value, or if someone's gone through it, they shouldn't regret that. There's something valuable, but the way it's pushed and promoted,
Yes.
this is your path. And this,
Yes.
I just think it actually, I think it hinders some kids more than it helps them, not just because of what they're taught, but because of the debt that they put themselves
Sure.
in. And, so I just think young people, if you're watching this, you need to really consider before you just jump into something like,
Yeah.
what am I passionate about?
Yeah.
What do I want to do? When am I most happy? Those are things that people don't really consider. What's my calling? What's my
Well,
path?
I think, yeah, I also think so. I jokingly do call college halfway houses. I was raised in a family that everybody goes to college. It was
Yeah.
never a question,
Wasn't an
right?
option.
And you just went. Um, but I also have really changed my opinion. When I was younger, I thought everybody needed to go to college, and I couldn't understand why people didn't, right?
Right.
As I got older, I realized the same things you're saying, like go be an electrician, go be a plumber, if you have a specific talent, woodworking, whatever it is, go do it. Um, I do think there is I went to a small college, only had 1,200 students. So for me, that was good. Cause I wasn't as mature as I should have been. I got bumped up a year in school when I was in elementary school. So I was younger when I went off to college. So for me, just the maturation
Yeah.
and in a semi-controlled environment,
Yeah.
we could still get into trouble, but less than if we'd just gone out on our own. So I think there's huge value to that. But yeah, I think anymore, I've really changed my opinion, and I
Yeah.
really think,
Well, again, I want to reiterate, like, there's a value to doing something hard for 4 years. There is a value to going away from home and having to figure out how to do your own laundry. And, there's value to,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
value of making stupid mistakes at a young age. It's the easiest time of
yep,
your life to be broke. It's the easiest time of your life to do stupid things. No one's counting on you per se. So there are so many values to that experience. I also think there are ways that we could provide a similar experience for
yes,
young people that would benefit them
yes,
more and not just be a business that's turned into this money
yeah,
grab
I
at the
agree.
expense of our kids and their future.
Yeah, and their
And so,
parents a lot of
and
times, and
parents, yeah.
parents,
I
yeah,
mean, my kids knew you're going to pay for school. Now we always help them, whatever. But like this mentality of, okay, if I'm paying for this, I'm going to give it a little more thought.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and we never leave them out on a ledge, or we've helped in so many ways. But this idea that I'm just going to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, or my parents are going to do that, and then just not move forward in life. So anyways, I know we could get off on a tangent for that, but before we go,
Yeah,
there's a segment that we do called Say It in 60, which we're going to ask you 10 rapid fire questions
okay.
in 60 seconds. But before we do that, I want you to look into this camera and just tell our audience how they can connect with you, where they can find you, and all of the
Yeah.
things.
So we're in Fenton, Michigan, Animal Health Clinic. We have a website, animalhealthclinic.org. Um, we're on Facebook. We're around the community. I'm out and about in the community a lot. I try to be involved in a lot of different things, but we're a destination, so people look us up. But we're easy to find on the internet, easy to find on Facebook.
All right. And my recommendation would be, if you're in the area, which if you're watching this, you probably are, uh, Dr. Sandy is a great human. She loves what she does. Her people love what they do. Your pet animal will be cared for at the highest level, regardless of the scenario, the situation. And so if you're looking for something like that, that's more experiential for your pet, your animal, your fur baby, I highly recommend Dr. Sandy and her team. They'll take great care of you, and
you.
we've always had a great experience with you. So,
Thank you.
okay, last thing is we're going to do this Say It in 60, as I just noticed my shoes untied. Micah, do you have the timer ready for us? All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So the record did belong to Bill Anderson. He did it in
of course
51
it
seconds,
does.
but then Bob Brundle beat him
Oh,
with
no.
50 seconds. So
Oh,
he
God.
was quick. I think he looked at the questions and thought of his answers. So 50 seconds
Okay.
is the record. There's no prize other than just bragging rights.
Oh, well,
So
I've got to beat Bob.
yes. So all right. Are you
Okay,
ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The timer starts now. What is your favorite hobby?
Running.
Favorite place you've ever been?
Ireland.
Favorite food?
Chocolate.
A must-read book?
Disney, if Disney ran your practice.
Favorite podcast?
Oh, of course, AZEE.
A daily habit everyone should practice?
Sleep.
A TV series worth binge watching?
Mr. Ed.
In your opinion, what will help your brand grow more? High-quality photography or high-quality video?
Video.
A great website or a great social media presence?
Is there such a thing?
What is the number one key to success? Last question.
Passion.
Passion. How much time left?
21 seconds left.
You smoked the record. 21 seconds remaining. So, studio audience, round of applause.
I just
So,
want Bob Brundle to know.
39 seconds, Bob. She's going to let you know about this, but 39 seconds. That's a new record here for Behind the Brand. So, we'll have to make sure people know about it. So, all right. Well, again, thank you for doing this, Dr.
Thank
Sandy.
you.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
I would just like to thank you for the opportunity. This has been great. This is my first podcast.
My pleasure. You did a wonderful
That's
job.
great.
Yeah.
It's great.
And the subject is you, so you should be an expert on that topic, right? So
well, maybe that makes it harder. I don't know.
great job. And again, highly, highly recommended, Dr. Sandy and her people. So again, thanks again.
Thank you.
And for those of you that are still watching with us, we appreciate you joining the show. As my mother always said, you can't and never could until you tried. So go out there and try something great, my friends, and don't take the easy way out. We'll see you next time.
Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We want to connect with you. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and let us know what guests you want us to have on the podcast. Follow us on social media for more branding insights, and thanks for watching Behind the Brand.